The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Frankly Speaking. I'm your host today, Frank Zabarick, and starting my 51st episode here of Frankly Speaking. And as in the great words of Steve Harvey of Family Feud, I got another good one for you today. Today, I'm excited to say that for my guest, I have Republican candidate for governor, Karen Testerman. And Karen, how you doing today? Can you hear me?
I'm doing well, Frank. Thank you so much for inviting me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Okay.
We're doing, in case you, my audience hasn't figured it out yet, we're doing this via Skype. And but it's working out well. It's working out. I had one a Skype show about 3 or 4 years ago, and it worked out excellent. So I think this will be a good episode too. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of my question here, Karen, why don't you tell my my TV/internet audience a little bit about yourself and why exactly you chose to run for governor?
Okay.
Of New Hampshire.
I'll be happy to, Frank.
Sure.
As a microbiologist by training, I am appalled actually at the fear, the panic, the control that is going on with our society right now in the live free or die state that is more like a live to comply state. And so I felt it was really important that I give our voters an opportunity to have somebody different to vote for. I came to New Hampshire with my husband after he retired in 1993 from the United States Air Force. We are a military family. My father served in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team from World War II. I have 2 sons who served one is serving in the Navy right now, and his brother was in the Air Force. Our daughter was in the Coast Guard. Wow. And while we were in Australia, I served as the Marine mom to our embassy guards. So we have pretty much all of the different services covered. But in addition to that, when I came to New Hampshire, I found out that this was an extraordinarily special state in that it was truly one where, as our founding fathers had envisioned in their original intent, that the average person would be part of the elected few that would go and administer the government. And their vision was that we would be a people-run organization, not from the bottom up and not top down, being controlled by the king or some other elite group of people. So, and when I found that out, I got very involved in education. I got involved with the taxpayer groups. I helped to found the National Heritage Center for Constitutional Studies, and I founded Cornerstone Policy Research because it looked at the public policy and how it impacted our families. And family is to me, is the basic unit of our government. And if those are strong, then the rest of the government will fall into place.
Ah, okay. Let me just say, when I heard your name for the first time, as far as being a candidate for governor, I'm friends with Jennifer Robideau, who was also on my show a couple times when she was the executive director of New Hampshire Right to Life. And I figured that if she's endorsing your candidacy, you must be very pro-life. And I know that group too has like a report card system where they do like not only the governor's races, but the president races, the congressmen, senator races, and they gauge everybody by how they do on when it comes to pro-life issues. And I'm just saying that, she didn't, she just said that Jennifer Robideau just said that, she was endorsing you, proud to endorse you, but she didn't say what your grade was or anything like that. But I assume you're very pro-life, and you probably got an A+ on their report card.
In all likelihood, because I've worked with the New Hampshire Right to Life, not only in protecting our preborn, but also in helping them with their education, also looking at our senior citizens and we held a seminar one time to really call attention to the situation with euthanasia. Remember Terry Schiavo and that situation, and we held a seminar trying to make sure the legislation would go through that would, at basic, would allow anyone in the hospital, no matter what their condition, to have life-saving nutrition and hydration. And that was something that we worked very hard to get into the legislation, and I think it's been removed at this point. So it's something that needs to be reinstated for sure.
Excellent, excellent. So, okay, moving right along. Probably one of the things you probably get a lot is, like when I just retired this past New Year's Eve. And I was with a union shop, and my union steward would always say before an election, "Don't forget, Frank, to vote your wallet." And then he'd ask the females, "Don't forget to vote your pocketbook." Because the economy is usually one of the top, if not the top, items there. So running as governor, running for governor of New Hampshire, is there any threat of having the state income tax or a state sales tax in New Hampshire?
Well, the opposition to me would be very much in favor of installing a state sales tax or an income tax. But I've taken the taxpayer protection pledge, which says that I will not raise taxes. And I don't think we have a revenue problem. I really think that our biggest problem is a spending problem. And so we need to do some serious audits of all of our departments and make sure that the government is running efficiently, just as we would be doing it in our homes.
Okay. So no way, Jose, when it comes to either sales tax or income tax for New Hampshire.
No. And New Hampshire has a lot of hidden taxes too. We have what we call an interest and dividends tax, which is in essence, an income tax on our senior citizens or those people who are smart enough to put some money away and invest it. So, we already have some sort of an income tax, and I would be in favor of repealing that and giving that money back to our citizens.
Sounds good to me. Okay, let's move ahead now to the 800-pound gorillas in the room. And I guess not only with governor candidates, but mostly I'm sure it'll come out in the presidential debates as well as the senatorial and congressional debates. What do you think about how New Hampshire's handling the coronavirus issue? Do you think schools should start up this September and go, K through 12 should go back to school? Do you think, and also, do you think that come November, that Donald Trump is probably going to get blamed for a lot of the coronavirus? Yet it's a worldwide problem. It's not just in the United States.
So, Frank, as I told you earlier, I have a microbiology background. And when I looked at this, when it first came out, I had to laugh because they're talking about one single virus when we live in an ocean of microbes. We have bacteria and parasites and viruses all around us, and some of them are necessary for our immune systems to grow and develop and to continue to protect us from dangerous pathogens. So I would not have, just like Kristi Noem from South Dakota, I would not have ever closed our businesses in New Hampshire. I would have said, this is the citizens of the state of New Hampshire are smart enough to know how to deal with this. And I would have told them what we were observing. We would have talked about what actions you as a citizen could take to protect yourself, protect those around you, and to act responsibly, just like we do for our environment. There are things that we need to do using our heads. And certainly the people of New Hampshire are smart enough to do that. Look at all the things that they've created and look at all the small businesses that they've developed. But with the actions that's been taken on this COVID disaster in action, and naming it specifically a COVID, not calling it a coronavirus, and not giving the people the idea that this is really, all flus are coronaviruses. And there has never been a vaccine that has ever effectively combated a coronavirus. And so, it's really up to the people. And I would have never closed this all down. Our schools should be operating. Everything should be going along just fine. In fact, there's a report out from a Swedish doctor right now who said, if you look at Sweden and what they did, everything has been taken care of in 4 months. And they did not do what most of the rest of the world did by closing everything and devastating their economies, devastating their small businesses, devastating their putting fear and panic in their citizens.
Okay. So, now moving right along. So hopefully come November, people don't take it out on President Trump too much that it's all his fault, that we were in a national pandemic right now.
Well, you know what, Frank, if you listen and you go back in the whole process, it was President Trump that in April before Easter was saying we need to get back to opening up our country. We need to be able to go to church and to celebrate Passover, to celebrate our Easter. We need to be active in going through this. And he was the one who's been taking the hydrochloroquine and zinc to build up his immune system and advocating that we do that. It's been the deep state that keeps saying and running with the big fear mongering, this communist virus is going to come and get you. And so we need to really support President Trump. He has been trying to open up this country since April. And here we are. Government malfeasance at its best right now. And we're still dealing with everybody's got to have social distancing. Everybody has to wear a mask. Everybody has to stay at home. And it's a crime.
Okay. So moving right along from one 800-pound gorilla to another 800-pound gorilla. Another thing that Donald Trump might get blamed for come the November election. What do you think about the peaceful protests that are going on in the major cities right now, which are turning? Okay.
They're not peaceful protests. They are rioters, and they are actually doing damage in many cases. I mean, you're hearing about carjackings. You're hearing about babies and children being murdered. You're hearing about graffiti and broken windows and all sorts of damage being done. That is not peaceful. If you want to talk about peaceful, then let us do like we do outside of our abortion clinics, where people gather and pray and quietly, many times with their signs, yes, maybe, but they're quietly gathering. Or you're doing like the reopen rallies that we've had in Concord, where people have gathered together and had speeches and talked about, had various discussions going on, but they're not putting graffiti all over Nashua. They're not putting graffiti all over Manchester or Portsmouth like we're seeing going on right now. And quite honestly, it's a crime that our governor sat there and said we had to have masks on, we had to do social distancing. But if you were coming across the border to protest in this state, welcome, and you didn't have to do any of those things. That is not what is best for Granite Staters. And then acquiescing to them and saying, well, maybe you have something that you need to discuss here, and maybe you have a complaint about our law enforcement, when our law enforcement is some of the best trained in the United States, and they continually are examining their practices to make sure that they're doing things correctly and with conscience towards the Granite Staters. So I think that our governor really devastated our police, they devastated our citizens, and is not speaking for the Granite Staters, but speaking for the protesters.
I think one of the things that's confusing, like especially like with Trump's situation, and you look at like the Seattle situation, where the Seattle mayor and governor are telling Trump to, leave the National Guard out of this. You're going to make it just worse by having them in there. Or the Portland, Oregon, or the governor of Oregon saying, they're just having fun here. Leave them alone. And yet, you're going to say, even though Trump may look like Adolf Hitler, or the National Guard look like stormtroopers, these guys are out of control. I think they should overrule them. And, just send the National Guard in there anyway. I don't know, but.
Well, if you look at what Kristi Noem did, she did exactly that. She said, you want to come in to our state and you want to loot and be violent and break our laws. Well, guess what? Our troopers are out there. And she called in the National Guard and she said, you go after these people and you will arrest them. And she put them up on camera and asked the public, do you know who these people are? And the public came forth and said, I know that person. I know that person. And they arrested them and dealt with them right away. That's exactly what we should be doing here.
I agree. Well, thankfully, it hasn't happened to New Hampshire yet. But it's probably just a matter of time. I mean, thank God Nashua and Manchester are considered major cities, like, Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, but it's just a matter of time before, like, Antifa or Black Lives Matter comes to Nashua or Manchester and does the same type of stuff here as they're doing there.
Well, I'll tell you what, Frank, it's going to be really interesting because the thing that I think is the wall that goes up, the silent wall that you see go up, is the fact that we have constitutional carry in the state of New Hampshire, where we can open carry, we can conceal carry, we can get a permit if we want to, but we don't have to. And that is going to keep anybody who really is serious about coming in and trying to do anything wrong. They're going to meet with the gun owners of New Hampshire, and that'll stop them.
Okay. I'm probably going to get to the Second Amendment here in a second. When we talked about when we met like a week or two ago at an ice cream social in Nashua, I asked you how many sanctuary cities and towns are there in New Hampshire? Are there any?
Yes, there are some, but you know what? That would be a move in which the state should be considering any money that they're giving to sanctuary cities could be withdrawn. But the other thing is that we are not a home rule state. So even though there are these cities that think that they're putting up mandates and so forth, they're not in our Constitution or they're not legal. So people should take that into consideration.
Okay. And also, I guess the whole thing behind sanctuary cities and sanctuary towns is if an illegal alien like commits a murder or rape, they're not going to call ICE, report them to ICE or anybody like that.
Well, shame on them,
Yeah.
in reality, because we need to have legal people coming into this country and into this state. And we have many, many legal uh, uh, new citizens, people who have gone through the process of coming here legally, working through getting their citizenship, going through the classes, learning about the Constitution, learning how to speak English, and then becoming naturalized citizens. Lily Tang Williams is one that comes to mind right away. And she will tell you, do not do anything in this country to make us communist. She came from a communist country. She doesn't want to go back to it. There are so many people around the state of New Hampshire who have gone through her same footsteps, and they don't want illegal persons to be here to in any way jeopardize their safety and what they've gone through. They've gone through the front door. They don't want to welcome people who come through the back door.
I hear you. Okay, so you alluded to the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. Did you see the video a week or two ago from St. Louis, Mr. and Mrs. McCloskey, where these
where they were standing their ground?
Yeah, with their guns. After the peaceful protesters broke down their gated community.
Exactly. They were real peaceful, weren't they? I mean, when they're sitting there breaking down things, causing damage to physical property. And definitely that was a stand your ground situation. And those people should be supported by the law enforcement and the government, not vilified, not put behind bars, not having their rights taken away, because these people very clearly violated their personal space.
Definitely. And the following day, it was either the Attorney General of Missouri or the District Attorney of St. Louis, one of the two, that had the law authorities go into their house, the McCloskey's house, and seizing their guns. Hopefully,
that's a violation. That's a violation of the Constitution. They should not be doing that, clearly. So, we have the law-abiding citizen should be protected and allowed to keep and bear arms. That's what the Constitution says. And when the government gets out of hand and becomes unconstitutional, that's when the people should rise up and use their authority to reinstate a government that is going to be constitutional in their eyes. We, the people, are supposed to have a responsibility to do that.
So hopefully a situation will never, ever happen like that in the state of New Hampshire if Karen Testerman's our governor.
That's correct.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, moving right along. So there was a sort of like a Russian collusion problem in the state of New Hampshire 4 years ago. Only it didn't really go against Hillary Clinton. It kind of went against Donald Trump. And it was involving these like out of state students that were attending like UNH, Dartmouth College, and I guess a few other colleges in New Hampshire. And I guess what they were doing was voting into their native states, wherever they were from, and also voting in the college communities around like Dartmouth, UNH, and stuff like that. Has that been resolved or mitigated or remedied since 4 years ago of like, especially out-of-state students voting twice?
Well, I know that, Frank, I've been working on this voter fraud situation probably since 2000, the year 2000, with Ed Nail from the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. And, it's been really interesting because Ed has taken this information as he has had actual voting cards that show that it was filled out with two different handwritings and yet the same name, the same information, etc. And so there's been voter fraud going on in the state of New Hampshire for at least 20 years that I'm aware of. And part of our problem is the way our laws are written. And another part is that we have had some misinformation going forward. So when the Constitution was written, the words in the Constitution have meaning. And those meanings go back to when the Constitution was there. So when we talk about domicile, and the domicile is what would qualify you to be able to vote in the state of New Hampshire. If you were a property owner, if you had demonstrated that you were a resident, a long-term citizen of the state of New Hampshire, then you were allowed to vote. Now, what's happened over the years is that we have taken that word domicile and redefined it many, many times. And so now we have what I call an unconstitutional law on the books that tries to establish what residency really is. And we have to clean that up. That's an open door for voter fraud. On the other hand, our governor just signed in to law the ability to get your absentee ballot if instead of not being physically capable of going to the polls or not being in the state and asking, or in the town and asking for an absentee ballot. Now you can get an absentee ballot if you feel like you're threatened from the boogeyman coronavirus. And so this is going to be a major problem. And the other thing is, this has been on the books for a while, where you can actually register to vote through the mail. Well, I want to know, how do you validate that the person who's submitting that is really who he says he is? Are you having a physical contact with that person? That has been one of the things that has been comforting to the state of New Hampshire, is that anytime you asked about having a voter registration, they always said, no, you can't do that. You have to go to your city clerk or your town clerk and get to establish your ability to vote. And now we're throwing that out the door. That is not right. That's not going to help us keep voter integrity going forward.
Incredible. Now, I was going to ask you about the situation with the mail-in ballots, but hopefully that won't be a problem. Although
it's already a problem because apparently the New Hampshire Republican Party was trying to help people register to vote on by mail, and they sent out some very confusing literature. And so there's an investigation that should be going on by the Attorney General's office if it is not already going on.
Incredible. Okay, so getting back to when we first met at the ice cream social here in Nashua, I believe they let you say a few words at that event, and I believe you started off by saying that you had pulled papers to run for governor in June. Is that correct?
Well, we have a very short time between our filing period and our primary election. That's been standard. But I think what you're referring to is how quickly I decided that I was going to run for governor this particular time. But if you really stop and think about it, I ran for governor in 2010 with Jack Kimball and John Stephen and Frank. I can't remember Frank's last name, but at any rate, there were four of us that were running for governor back then. And in essence, I haven't gone away. I've still been active in Republican politics, in the state activities. I continue to do a radio program and television on Access Nashua. I've continued to be very active in everything that I've done. So I have not stopped running for governor in many cases, but I did make my decision rather rapidly. And so between probably the 1st of June and the 10th of June, or the 8th of June, is when I made my final decision and decided that on the 10th that I would be filing my papers. So it was very quick. It wasn't something that I'd been pondering over and over for the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, I know the governor's race, you're up for re-election like every 2 years. When is the most that you can pull nomination papers, the earliest you could pull nomination papers?
That second week in June is the one time when you can come out and actually file your papers officially. You can make a lot of noise beforehand, and you can say, "I'm going to be doing this a year, 2 years in advance," but and even longer. I mean, there's one lady over in Keene who is so upset that she has said that she would run in 2024 when she would qualify to be a gubernatorial candidate. You see, there's 7 years. You're supposed to be in the state, living in this state 7 years prior to filing for candidacy.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was just going to say, I mean, without any, I think your biggest test, personally, I think your biggest obstacle is going to be September 8th. You're going up against a guy named Sununu, and he's from New Hampshire. Him and his dad and his brothers have a pretty good family name recognition in the state.
Yes, they do.
So you've got a lot, I don't know, maybe if you had like social events, like, I don't know what they call, organizational parties or whatever, like from January. Meet and greets and stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah. Well, in essence, Frank, I have been going to meet and greets for the last 20 years, or 20 plus years, actually, because I go out and I'm active in the community. I also serve as the city councilor in Franklin. So, and I write letters, I write articles and so forth like that. So I have been active in going to meet and greets for a long time.
Okay.
And it's not like it's a completely new venture for me.
Okay, so you got a little bit of visibility in the state as far as politicking and stuff like that. So that is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. And it's not just in politics, Frank. I go to other things, like I go to a lot of the CareNet dinners, which are supporting our young women who are trying to make a decision about what they're going to do with their newborn baby. And I attend this sex trafficking conferences. I've attended a lot of various other type activities. So it's not just in politics that I'm involved.
Okay. Okay, so moving right along here, 4 years ago, I had a gentleman who was running for governor of New Hampshire, and he was a real long shot candidate. I think he ran as an independent. And I had mentioned to him, if me personally has ever run for New Hampshire governor, one of the things I would propose is it would be mandatory that all motorcyclists will now have to wear helmets. That would be required. And the guy told me you'd get slaughtered if you ever propose something like that. What is your thoughts on requiring motorcyclists in New Hampshire to wear a helmet at all times?
Frank, every day we get up and we put our feet on the ground and we get up out of bed and we take a risk. And no matter what we choose to do that day, we are taking a risk. And it's up to us to be responsible for our own activities. That's called personal responsibility. And the same thing is true. And this is the live free or die state, who believes fully that anybody who is an adult should be able to make their own decisions about what risks they want to take and do not want to take. And in the case of motorcycle helmets, some people just feel like they would really like to have that wind blowing through their hair, and they're willing to take the risk that they might have an accident and they might die, or they might be injured or permanently injured. And but that is their decision. And so what our position is, as a government, is to warn them about that, to use the bully pulpit to say, if you do such and such and so, you're putting yourself at greater risk than if you put on a helmet.
Okay. So you would never even think of proposing something like that as throwing out a proposal for requiring people to wear helmets when they ride a motorcycle?
No, I wouldn't. In fact, New Hampshire is probably one of the most restrictive states when it comes to licensing various activities. And in many cases, that licensing has restricted people's ability to fight back against the current situation. So I've had businesses that would tell me, if it weren't for the licensing, I would have opened my business. I have clients that want to come to my business, and I would have been able to earn a living. And instead, because of the licensing restrictions in this state, they have not been able to do that.
Wow. Okay, moving right along. I had a state rep, a New Hampshire state rep on my show a couple years ago. Well, on an issue that kind of involved me, I kind of get messed over one year on getting my state inspection sticker. And this state rep, James Spillane out of Deerfield, I guess he proposed a couple times to remove the state annual inspection sticker on vehicles. And I think it's a good in a way. If you're going to get in the business of doing that, there should be some recourse somehow, some way. Like in my case, I couldn't sue. I mean, I probably could have taken this establishment to small claims court. But the thing is, small claims court, I would get a date. They'd give me a date like 4 or 5 months from now. And my inspection sticker would have to be my birthday month. So if I had to wait till then, my small claims case, I mean, but I got back at him by putting my thing on Yelp. I argued about him on Yelp, saying this is a horrible establishment, stay away, blah, blah, blah. And that's basically how I got back at him. But would you support, though, that they should be monitored?
Well, the thing is,
okay.
Right. Well, so here's the deal. When you get your state inspection sticker, the other thing that you need to do in the state of New Hampshire is you need to get insurance. And we require that to a large extent for the safety of others. But in reality, it's the insurance companies that should be running some of this, whether or not you qualify. And it shouldn't really be a state-run situation. I think the state does it so that they can collect revenue from it. But in reality, it's like your insurance company. If you're wearing a seatbelt, they reward you by giving you extra coverage. If you happen to live in a high accident area, they penalize you by giving you higher rates. So it is the insurance company that is driving some of that, and maybe that's where it really lies, rather than with this state getting involved in actually requiring state inspections.
Okay. In a sense, I can see. I mean, if a driver's going around with bad tread on his tires, if he has bad brakes, he should get it fixed, because he could inadvertently kill somebody by not getting that fixed or taken care of. So,
right. You have a responsibility to others, too. And that's something that we should be saying to the public, to the people, is that, reminding them of their responsibility to others, and making sure, the fact that check your tires. This is how you check your tires. Maybe what we're doing is we're telling somebody else to do all of the checking for us, and we're not aware of what needs to be done. And so, being a person who doesn't necessarily know all the workings of a car, I might learn, if I knew that if I didn't do this properly, that I could not only jeopardize my own life, the life of my children that are in the car with me, but also the people who I might be driving past on the road. So in which case I would be personally responsible and take on that responsibility myself. This is the way that our founding fathers envisioned America to really work, was the individual would be personally responsible for doing what was right, not only for themselves, but also for the community.
Okay. So one more question about the various issues. Well, I've heard this come up a few times before. I don't know if it's still like a hot button issues. Is everybody happy with the highway tolls in New Hampshire?
The tolls are a way to get those people who are coming across the border into the state of New Hampshire. Now, there's a situation in Merrimack where in certain areas, if you live in Merrimack, you pay tolls all the time. And the people of Merrimack have maybe they made a decision as a community early on that this was okay, and now they've decided that suffering under the extra finances and so forth, that they would really rather not have the tolls. But if you don't want to pay the tolls, there are ways around it. You can just take the side roads. It's not as fast, but if you're going to, the whole idea behind that is if you're going to use that road, then you might be willing to pay for the use of that road. And so, it's a discussion that the legislature has to come up with, and they have to have good reasons before they put it on the governor's desk for any signing.
Yeah. Well, one thing you can promote, though, is that New Hampshire's a lot better, a zillion times better than the state of Maine. Maine is just ridiculous. It costs you like $20-$30 to drive to Portland. It's unbelievable.
Right. So it costs you a whole lot of money to drive down to Washington, D.C. too, especially if you take the toll roads. If you go around, there are ways around that so that you don't have to pay the extra money to use those roads. But if you're going to use those roads, maybe the people that have the tolls on them have a good point.
Okay. Now getting into the presidential election and the polls, for example, it's hard to believe that somebody like a Joe Biden is like 12, 13 points ahead of Donald Trump. Even with the coronavirus situation and all the riots going on in the major cities, I think the president is doing, the best job possible. And I can't see that Joe Biden would be a better selection. Although 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton should have slaughtered Donald Trump. So I don't know if we should believe in these polls. And not only that, I think also, if a pollster were to call me up, I don't think I would tell him the truth on who I would vote for president. For fear if they're with Antifa or Black Lives Matter, they might try to assault me or vandalize my property or something like that. I say,
well, in today,
yeah.
In today's society, it becomes very, very questionable about how honest are you going to be because of the threat and the activities of those who want to make a big deal out of it. Quite honestly, I haven't believed polls in a long, long, long time because there are certain ways that you do polls. And if you are doing a real sampling, where you're taking an honest sampling of the people, and then you are conducting the poll in a proper way. There are ways that you ask questions on a poll, and you can go back and re-ask those questions in a different way to verify that the person is telling you where they really honestly stand. So those are the kinds of polls that you really want to go in and have a true analysis of who the people are that you're asking the questions of. And then you can maybe put some credibility to those polls. But the way polls are done every day now, and they're done 10, 20 times a day, and it depends upon who the audience is. It depends upon how the question's asked. There are so many things that can misconstrue those numbers so that they can tell you anything they want to. And as somebody said at one time, that you can manipulate statistics to say whatever you want it to say.
I think you got a point there. Wow. And also, I guess another hot button issue that's propped up in the presidential race. Hopefully, you don't have the same problem in the New Hampshire governor's race. Is the debates between Joe Biden and President Trump. And the rumor has it that Joe Biden, especially if he really believes that he's like 12, 15 points ahead in the polls, why bother debating? Do you think that Biden will get hurt if he just says, "The heck with it, I'm not debating"?
It'll be interesting to see what happens there, because I think that what we've seen of Joe Biden is it's criminal what people are doing to him. If he is truly capable of being cognizant and so forth, that's one thing. But some of the and I don't know if it's misconstruction by naysayers, but if he is having trouble with his cognitive abilities, to sit and just drag him out over and over and over again is cruel and unusual punishment, and they should stop it. But as far as debates go, we should all have debates. Debates make us stronger candidates in the long run.
Okay, so I hope you and Mr. Sununu, Governor Sununu, are going to have a debate or two before September 8th.
Well, we'll see if it happens. I'd welcome it.
Oh, okay. So nobody like Channel 9 or the union leader or anybody like that has organized a debate like that?
Now, I think they think he's a shoo-in, and that there is no possibility that he can ever be unseated. But the people that I'm talking to, the everyday citizen out there, is certainly rallying around me, and I'm certainly getting a lot of support. So it'll make a difference on September 8th if people will go out and vote their values and notice that there is a distinct difference between the sitting governor and myself. I am the only pro-life candidate that is in the race at all, whether no matter what party you're talking about. I'm the only one that is truly a pro-constitutionalist, a purist in constitutional government. I'm the only one that's really believing that you, the citizen, have the smarts to be able to take care of yourself and the responsibility to be able to take care of yourself and your loved ones. So there's a distinct difference between the two of us.
So I hope, like, one of these, I just threw out Channel 9 and Union Leader, because I think arguably they're the probably two biggest in the media entities in New Hampshire. But like Nashua Telegraph or some of these other newspapers and stuff like that, I hope they take the initiative to organize a debate like that, just for the public good and community service or whatever.
Exactly. But I will give WMUR credit, because they have been, they ask the same questions of all the candidates. They do try to get the views of all of the candidates out into the public area, especially in Manchester. And so I think that they should be given credit for what they do.
Okay. Well, so time flies when you're having fun, eh, Karen?
Oh, it does.
Yeah, well, my producer told me we've got just under 10 minutes left. So if you want to just, if there's anything we've talked about that you'd like to elaborate on at this time, or if there's something I haven't brought up at all, which you'd like to bring up and address in the next 9.5 minutes, please feel free to do that.
Well, Frank, one of the things that I think is really, really important to know is that through the actions of this particular governor, we are no longer operating in the original intent of our founding fathers. We are operating as sheeple, so to speak. We're complying to do everything. We were supposed to be flattening the curve. Now we need to flatten the fear. We need to go out and get rid of all of the panic and the actual being afraid to do anything other than what somebody else tells us to do. We should be exercising our own personal responsibility, taking care of ourselves, getting plenty of rest, eating fresh fruits and vegetables. And now in New Hampshire, it's a great time to do that, because we have all of our local markets that are out there, our markets that are out there, and buying fresh fruits and vegetables are really important. We ought to be also making sure that we've got the ability to have our own gardens and our own yards and taking care of that. But in addition to getting plenty of rest, eating properly, making sure that, especially in this hot weather, that you're staying hydrated, making sure that you're taking care of your own immune system. And if you've got situations where you might be compromised, you've got asthma, you may have diabetes, you may have a heart condition, you may have stubbed your toe, but whatever it is, you need to be sure that you're taking good care of yourself and making sure that if you've got something you think you could communicate to somebody else, then that you should be taking those precautions to stay at home. If you're running a temperature, stay at home. If you're coughing and sneezing, you probably want to stay at home unless you know for sure that it's allergies that you're suffering with. And the masks are not helping anybody. We've got a rise in other maladies that are coming about because of the masks. Masks are definitely deleterious to our health, because what your body is trying to do on a regular basis is to breathe in the fresh oxygen from outside and to breathe out the carbon dioxide and the other airborne things that your body is, the byproducts that your body's trying to get rid of. And when we have the masks on, all we're doing is breathing in the stuff, the carbon dioxide and those other substances that your body's trying to get rid of, those droplets of moisture, etc. And then you're taxing your own, putting stress on your own immune system. And when you do that, then you're putting yourself in danger as well. So we need to start thinking about what is the smart thing to do, and also thinking about what is the purpose of a mask in the first place. Personal protection equipment is put on so that if you are going into a sterile environment, if you're going into the operating room, that you're not taking outside pathogens in with you. If you are going into a place where it's highly contagious, that you're not taking it outside with you and that you're not contaminating yourself. So you have to stop and think about, is that what we're doing when we're walking around outside? And where are the hazardous waste containers? If what we're breathing out in our masks is so dangerous to us, why aren't we having those hazardous waste containers to put things in? So these are the things that I would be talking about, using the bully pulpit to tell the people of New Hampshire that you are in control of your own life, that you can make the best decisions, that you can decide for yourself whether or not you need to take that vaccination or whether you need to put on a mask or whether you need to stay at home. You, the people, are the ones that have built this community, and every one of them is essential. We're all essential to our families. We're all essential to our places of work. We need to go out and get work wherever we can so that we can provide for ourselves, and then whatever we have left over that we can share with other people. That is what New Hampshire was made for. And that is why I'm running for governor of New Hampshire, because I want to be your voice. I want to do what is best for the people of New Hampshire, not what I think is the best for me, or I don't want to be the one that's coming down with all these edicts and these control mechanisms to make sure that you do what I do or what I want so that I can line my pockets with your dollars. So that's the message I want to send to the people of New Hampshire, is that I am your Republican candidate for governor, and that I will do for the people of New Hampshire what the original intent of government was supposed to be. You know, the Constitution, our founding fathers' original intent was that they drew up this document to control the elected officials, not to have the elected officials control you, but the other way around. So we need to reclaim that. And the only way we're going to do it is to elect Karen Testerman as your governor, your gubernatorial candidate on September 8th, and then make me your governor on November 3rd. And Frank, thank you so much for this opportunity to address your audience and to share my message with them. And if you want more information, you can go to KarenTesterman.com. We're needing to make, just like any other campaign, we need to raise those funds so we can get our message out. And so your contributions are very, very important, no matter how little or how big they are. They're very important. And if you can make a continuing contribution, if you can set aside $5 a week and help my campaign, that's important too. And tell your friends and your neighbors, be willing to hold a sign at the polls, right? Do sign waves, go out to the transfer stations. Only in New Hampshire do we ever campaign at the transfer stations. It's one of the unique things about New Hampshire. And be sure that you go to the polls and vote, and take 5 people with you. And don't be afraid to go without your mask.
Exactly. And the September 8th election is a primary. So if you're an independent or undisclosed, unenrolled, like I am, unenrolled or independent, you pull a Republican ballot and you can vote for Karen Testerman that way for governor.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And everybody should exercise their right to vote. 50% of the population that is eligible to vote is even registered. And of that, usually only 50% actually go to the polls. So that means 25% of the population is making your decisions for you. You need to get out, and you need to go to the polls, and you need to take your friends and your family and tell them that they can go and vote too. And still in New Hampshire, we're still able to same day register. So not being registered is not an excuse, but go out and vote your heart and your conscience. And don't worry so much about your wallet as you are about doing the right thing and voting for life, voting for your liberties, and voting for your properties.
Exactly. Karen, thank you very much for being a guest on my show today. It was great to have you. Hopefully after September 8th, if you're going to be the governor candidate going up against the Democrat, I'll have to have you on my show again. We'll see what happens.
Oh, I would love to do that. Yes, Frank, I would very much entertain that opportunity. And thank you so much for doing Frankly Speaking, because it's a great service to the community of Nashua.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Karen, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely, we will.
Don't forget to keep me in the loop. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, join me for another episode of Frankly Speaking. Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.